You're live. We're live. We're live on Facebook and we're live on Instagram at the same time. I have a special guest today.
Hi.
My honest Advent book study in my house partner. So yes, welcome to the Advent book study. This is my husband Joshua, in case you didn't know.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm glad that you said yes, because I believe you have a story to tell.
We do.
All right, so today's was day 23, and we talked about attention. So here's a picture today. That's so cool. There's like a galaxy and universe inside of baby Jesus. So the verse today is, "Where is the newborn King of Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." Matthew 2:2. All right. So this is a good one. It's all about being present to the moment and being aware.
I love that he opened it up with Good Will Hunting. That's
I know.
So good.
It's my favorite movie.
It was like that whole movie is amazing, but just the interaction with Will and Robin Williams' character, Sean, the therapist.
Yeah.
That whole thing is, there's so many good scenes out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And this was it was really cool how he tied that in to the idea of like we can, and it pointed me to totally what you do as far as encounters, because like there's so much that you can read about, or like there's knowledge, and then there's knowing, and like experiencing, and that's totally what I got out of that first part.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I actually wrote down a little bit later, Eugene, who is our pastor friend, pastor preacher, even though he hates being called a pastor or preacher. But he, like, his key phrase is, you can know a lot about Jesus, but do you know him? And that's what I was taking from the Good Will Hunting scene.
Mm-hmm.
And we can read a lot about God, about Holy Spirit, about Jesus, but have you actually experienced him? And
just that invitation into participating, like that's really what, like, and you think about his kingdom, like he wants us to participate. Like he hasn't called us to sit on the sidelines. It's that participation piece that's...
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought it was a really neat picture of like, well, you can know a lot about things, and even like Will was criticizing Sean in that scene about whatever his experience has been, and marriage and all that kind of stuff, but he hasn't ever experienced it. So it's, I don't know, it's just an interesting like parallel.
It points mute if you haven't walked through it.
Right.
Which kind of reminds me of like non-parents giving parental advice. Or like myself when I was 20 and didn't have children yet, and I was the greatest mother of all time before I had children.
You have all the best parenting advice until you have children.
Yes, this is true. Oh goodness.
That's good.
Okay, so one of the other things, and specifically why I invited you on here, actually before we talk about that, he starts talking about, have you not witnessed something in the material world that made your soul whisper, I think someone's trying to get my attention? And I call these God winks, and I've had multiple groups and communities where we have talked about how there are little moments in the day where you just get these little God winks. Like my friend Jenny, who's Eugene's wife, she would always see butterflies, and it just became this like, really, is this happening over and over again? And just little like winks that God was intentionally thinking of her. And then it became more and more aware throughout different circles that we were talking about little God winks. And even my sister-in-law, Maria, she sees heart-shaped things all the time after an encounter that she experienced a heart from the Father. And then I'm trying to think of a few other ones that are really fun. But just being more aware and paying attention that God actually speaks through little minute details. And we can miss out on those little moments of like,
It's the whisper, right? He's not in the bellowing wind or whatever. I'm blanking on where that is
still
out
small
of. But
voice.
that's still small voice.
Yeah.
And the way that it's so unique to each person. He kind of talks about it in this around, we're all created uniquely. God has something to shine through us uniquely, and so it's no wonder that he would speak to us uniquely in that, and like everybody seeing something different. Or I think about in my my thought process of like mathematics and physics and like how the world, the universe works, and like those little winks of like, you can't make this stuff up kind of stuff.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
And so,
yes.
Yeah, it's fun that it's unique to each person in that, and that we can continue to see those patterns. He talks about the inner pattern kind of being seen in the outer world, but we have to be paying attention.
Yes. Yeah.
Looking for it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so then he was talking about how he was driving to his job to quit because he had missed so many opportunities to share his art. And he was going to take a leap of faith and quit his job to become full-time artist, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I brought Joshua on, other than his amazing insight, and I like him here, that I can talk to somebody other than a screen, is because I call these moments jump ship moments. And we had this big faith building time period in 2013. And we call it our jump ship time. So,
and there's been a few in our marriage.
Thanks, Jesus.
Yeah, and so that experience for me is just, really, there was a security of, having a job, not feeling like it was the best fit. One of them was back when I was teaching, and feeling led to not renew my contract with the school I'd been with for a very long time. And so that was a stepping out moment. And, the Lord really came through in a lot of ways in that way, and a lot of growing in that. But the most recent one was very clear, and we were actually up at a retreat and really just praying through it and trying to figure out like what we needed to do. And we actually got that picture of jumping ship, and how daunting that looking, into deep waters, just kind of the idea of, you're out in the middle of nowhere, in the ocean on the ship. And the picture for us was,
I love that you're wearing the shirt.
I know,
and
I'm just representing
our retreat. Revel. I'm gonna put a link.
Yeah, good. It was very much a picture of us trying to hold on to a sinking ship, was the idea. And the ship around us was, falling apart and being just bashed by the waves, and just how scary it is to to give up on something that you're trying desperately to hold on to some sort of sense of control. And like the invitation was to jump ship, leave that, abandon it. And even though it's scary to go into those dark waters, that he had something better for us. And so the picture ended up becoming, and this was actually kind of a couple iterations. So that was a big jumping off moment. And then down, I think it was maybe 6 months, a year later, I'd gone back up and gotten a revelation of him giving me this brand new ship that I was no longer captain of, but he was captain of. And just, it takes that leap. It takes that letting go of what you feel like you can control, and when he's calling you out. And I loved how he talked about it. Just confirmations of that. Even though it's scary, like there's just like we have talked about, and I know you've talked about it, just the gratitude and like remembering like all the different things. Because I look back on that season, it was just such a like letting go and trusting, and then he would come through in crazy ways, and that we weren't expecting. I remember, not having one Christmas, like, because it was right in the middle of Christmas time, like we had friends just give our kids an amazing Christmas. I mean, just
it literally
amazing
was like Santa
blessings.
came
like
in huge boxes of gifts or cash left in an envelope.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. And again, it was a real calling to trust, and I think that's what it ultimately comes down to is and a lot of the times, and I talk about it with my friends all the time, like a lot of the times we aren't able to do that in our comfortable spot, and so it takes a like ripping out of or jumping ship, either consciously or unconsciously, meaning like sometimes you don't have a choice to jump ship, and sometimes it is a choice, but ultimately he, I think, grows you up in that time and just like gives opportunity to trust him in a lot of ways. And so, I mean, going back to like the Magi, like that was a huge, just like trusting, like let's follow the star and to to try to go see this king. And like, I mean, that's what it ends up becoming, is just this journey, and then him meeting us in those places. And so, yeah, that was kind of part of our experience with that. But
yeah, I'm so glad you came to share that story, because it was huge.
Well, it was, yeah.
It was huge because you are very methodical and like, let me see how this is going to pan out. And for you to jump ship, I feel like you grew a ton in that season. And I don't know, it was just such a cool experience. So,
well, and with that, I mean, it can be so hard in just the world that we live in. Like it's not like a normal thing to do, and by the world standards it doesn't seem rational or or whatever. And so it just, so that was a huge growing piece, and I mean, in so many ways, like it takes somebody having a little bit more faith. I point to my wife because she really encouraged that, and just I think allowed some doors to be open for me to take that leap of faith, because it wasn't easy for me at all, but just I think your unwavering faith of it'll be okay, and like this is what we need to do. And we really felt like we had a clear direction. And even in that, like I felt like I had a clear direction to where I was I had turned down work, and because of like knowing that I wanted to go in one direction that I felt like the Lord was leading.
Yeah.
And it's been cool to see how that has all panned out, and just, yeah, really nothing that I could have created on my own.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's neat.
That's pretty neat.
Pretty neat.
Well, thanks for sharing. And yeah, I think, is there anything else that you wanted to add from the chapter today? Maybe I'll just read this little.
Yeah, read that, because I think that is great.
We may not be asked to travel hundreds of miles to experience the presence of a newborn king, but the stars leading you to a deeper knowledge of God may be just as mysterious now as they were back then. The wonder in God with us is found in paying attention to the exterior patterns that illuminate the patterns within. If you are watching, you'll see them. Then you too will be asked to move from observation to participation in the ancient journey of knowing the divine. And then the prayer is, may you keep paying attention to what the outside illuminates inside. So, that was a good one. There's lots of like good, meaty.
Yeah. Again, just going back to that participation piece, like I loved how he summarized that, because I think that that's really our joy, is to participate in what he's allowing. And I mean, worship is a part of that. Like, it's us participating in and I think about the encounters, or just knowing the identity that we have, that he specifically is giving us. But it takes participating in listening and seeing, and being aware of all those things. Even with, if you have kids, like all those things, like we have to be in participation. We have to be aware, be looking for those things to be able to know what we're doing. Yeah,
I agree. That's why I do what I do.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day. I don't know if I'll be on here tomorrow or Christmas, but I'll give a shout out to the rest of the book, because I'm sure it's going to be amazing. But thanks for listening to so much of the book study, and for giving your feedback. And love you, sis. Thanks, Maria, for being on here today. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Merry Christmas.